Patrice Lumumba was born on 2nd July 1925 as Isai Tasumbu Tawasa to Julienne Wamato Lomenja and her husband François Tolenga Otechima, a farmer in Onalua, in the Katako-Kombe region of the Kasai province of the Belgian Congo. He was a member of the Tetela ethnic group, where he was referred to with the name Elias Okita Sombo. His original surname means heir of the cursed, and is derived from the Tetela words Okita, Okito, heir, successor, and Asombo, cursed or bewitched people who will die quickly. He had 3 brothers, Charles Lokolonga, Emile Kalema, and Louis Onema Pene Lumumba, and 1 half-brother, Jean Tolenga. Raised in a Catholic family, he was educated at a Protestant primary school, a Catholic missionary school, and finally the government post office training school, where he passed the 1-year course with distinction. He was known for being a vocal, precocious young man, regularly pointing out the errors of his teachers in front of his peers. This outspoken nature would come to define his life and career. Lumumba spoke Tetela, French, Lingala, Swahili, and Chiluba. Outside of his regular studies, Lumumba took an interest in the Enlightenment ideals of Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire. He was also fond of Molière and Victor Hugo. He wrote poetry, and many of his works had anti-imperialist themes. He worked as a travelling beer salesman in Leopoldville and as a postal clerk in Stanleyville for 11 years. Lumumba was married 3 times. He married Henriette Malatawa a year after arriving in Stanleyville. They divorced in 1947. In the same year, he married Hortense Sombozia, but this relationship also fell apart. He began an affair with Pauline Key. While he had no children with his first 2 wives, his relationship with Key resulted in a son, François Lumumba. Though he remained close with Key until his death, Lumumba ultimately ended their affair to marry Pauline Opangu in 1951. In the period following World War II, young leaders across Africa increasingly worked for national goals and independence from the colonial powers. In 1952, he was hired to work as a personal assistant for French sociologist Pierre Clément, who was performing a study of Stanleyville. That year, he also co-founded and subsequently became president of a Stanleyville chapter of the Association des Anciens Élèves des Pères de Chute, ADAPES, an alumni association for former students at Chute schools, despite the fact that he had never attended one. In 1955, Lumumba became regional head of the Circles of Stanleyville and joined the Liberal Party of Belgium. He edited and distributed party literature. Between 1956 and 1957, he wrote his autobiography, which was published posthumously in 1962. After a study tour in Belgium in 1956, he was arrested on charges of embezzlement of $2,500 from the post office. He was convicted and sentenced 1 year later to 12 months imprisonment and a fine. Patrice Lumumba was a Congolese politician, an independence leader, who served as the first Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, then known as the Republic of the Congo, from June until September 1960, following the May 1960 election. He was the leader of the Congolese National Movement, MNC, from 1958 until his assassination in 1961. Ideologically an African nationalist and Pan-Africanist, he played a significant role in the transformation of the Congo from a colony of Belgium into an independent republic. June 30th, 1960. Leopoldville. The Belgian flag comes down, the Congolese flag rises. The world's dignitaries gather, expecting a smooth ceremonial handover. King Baudouin praises Belgium's civilizing mission, glossing over the horrors of Leopold's rule. President Kasavubu offers polite words. But Patrice Lumumba, Congo's first elected prime minister, listens in silence, his people's pain burning inside him. He's not on the program, but he stands. The hall tenses. Belgian officials shift. The king's composure cracks. Lumumba walks to the podium, breaking the script. He looks past the dignitaries straight at his people. He stands not just as a politician, but as the voice of a wounded nation. In that moment, he is the embodiment of Africa's demand for dignity. The world expects gratitude. Instead, they get truth. The silence is electric. Lumumba begins to speak. He is not here to thank the colonizers. He is here to reclaim history. The world is about to hear what freedom really sounds like, not as a gift, but as a right seized. The moment is irreversible. Lumumba's words shatter the ceremony's calm. He speaks of forced labor, hunger, humiliation, of a people treated as strangers in their own land. Our lands were seized in the name of laws that only recognized the right of the stronger, he declares. Each sentence is a blow to the myth of a peaceful handover. The Belgian delegation is stunned. King Baudouin is shamed. Lumumba claims independence as a victory earned through struggle, not a gift. He draws a line: Congo's freedom is real, and its destiny will be its own. For the Congolese, it's a moment of vindication. For the powerful, it's a threat. Lumumba wants more than a flag. He wants true control over Congo's wealth. In minutes, he makes powerful enemies. His words are a declaration of war on the old order. The world hears the voice of a people refusing to be puppets. For Lumumba, this speech is both a triumph and a sentence. He has signed his own death warrant. Belgian officials reel from Lumumba's speech, not just insulted, but threatened. Their economic empire, copper, diamonds, uranium, now hangs in the balance. Lumumba's call for real independence is a direct threat to their profits. They plot to destabilize his government, supporting Katanga's secession to cripple Congo's finances. Belgian officers and mercenaries back Moise Tshombe's breakaway state. Propaganda paints Lumumba as a communist and a madman. They ally with jealous Congolese politicians, promising power in exchange for betrayal. The Belgians set the stage for chaos, determined to keep control from the shadows. Their strategy: divide, destabilize and destroy Lumumba's vision. The vultures circle, ready to pick the bones of a wounded nation. The wound of colonialism is open, and they intend to exploit it. Lumumba's defiance alarms not just Belgium, but Washington and London. In the Cold War, neutrality is seen as hostility. When Lumumba seeks Soviet help against Belgian-backed rebels, the West panics. The CIA and MI6 see him as Africa's Castro, a threat to Western interests and uranium supplies. Eisenhower authorizes the CIA to remove Lumumba by any means. Plots range from poison to assassination. The British quietly support, sharing intelligence and strategy. The West, champions of democracy, now conspire to destroy a democratically elected leader. Congo's fate is decided in secret, far from its people. The Cold War's shadow falls over Africa. Lumumba decided to travel to New York City in order to personally express the position of his government to the United Nations. Shortly before his departure, he announced that he had signed an economic agreement with a US businessman who had created the Congo International Management Corporation, CIMCO. According to the contract, which had yet to be ratified by Parliament, CIMCO was to form a development corporation to invest in and manage certain sectors of the economy. He also declared his approval of the Second Security Council resolution, adding that Soviet aid was no longer necessary, and announced his intention to seek technical assistance from the United States. On 22nd July, Lumumba left the Congo for New York City. He and his entourage reached the United States 2 days later, after brief stops in Accra and London. There, they rendezvoused with his UN delegation at the Berkeley Hotel to prepare for meetings with UN officials. Lumumba was focused on discussing the withdrawal of Belgian troops and various options for technical assistance with Dag Hammarskjöld. African diplomats were keen that the meetings would be successful. They convinced Lumumba to wait until the Congo was more stable before reaching any more major economic agreements, such as the CIMCO arrangement. Lumumba saw Hammarskjöld and other staff of the UN Secretariat over 3 days on 24, 25 and 26 July. Though Lumumba and Hammarskjöld were restrained towards one another, their discussions went smoothly. In a press conference, Lumumba reaffirmed his government's commitment to positive neutralism. On 27 July, Lumumba went to Washington, D.C. to meet with the U.S. Secretary of State and appeal for financial and technical assistance. The U.S. government informed Lumumba that they would offer aid only through the UN. The following day, he received a telegram from Katanga detailing a clash at Kolwezi between Belgian and Congolese forces. Lumumba felt that the UN was hampering his attempts to expel the Belgian troops and defeat the Katangan rebels. On 29 July, Lumumba went to Ottawa, the capital of Canada, to request help. The Canadians rebuffed a request for technicians and said that they would channel their assistance through the UN. Frustrated, Lumumba met with the Soviet ambassador in Ottawa and discussed a donation of military equipment. When he returned to New York the following evening, he was restrained towards the UN. The United States government's attitude had become more negative, due to reports of the rapes and violence committed by ANC soldiers and scrutiny from Belgium. The latter was chagrined that Lumumba had received a high-level reception in Washington. The Belgian government regarded Lumumba as communist, anti-white and anti-Western. Given its experience in the Congo, many other Western governments gave credence to the Belgian view. Lumumba's enemies are not just foreign, they are Congolese. President Kasavubu, cautious and conservative, fears Lumumba's radicalism. Foreign powers exploit this rift, promising Kasavubu support if he ousts Lumumba. Ambitious army chief Mobutu, once Lumumba's ally, sees his chance. The CIA backs Mobutu, grooming him for power. In September 1960, Kasavubu dismisses Lumumba on radio. Lumumba retaliates in kind. The government collapses into chaos. Mobutu seizes the moment, launching a peaceful revolution. He claims neutrality, but in truth he's taken control with foreign backing. Lumumba is isolated, betrayed by his own. The trap is set. Congo's dream fractures from within. The stage is set for tragedy. Mobutu's coup shatters Lumumba's vision. Lumumba is placed under house arrest, surrounded by UN troops, ostensibly for his protection, but really to silence him. The UN, meant to defend sovereignty, now enables his isolation. Katanga's secession bleeds the nation, while the West recognizes Mobutu's regime. Lumumba's only hope: escape to Stanleyville, rally his supporters, and reclaim his mandate. In November 1960, he flees into the night, pursued by Mobutu's soldiers and Western agents. Villagers cheer him along the way, but the net tightens. For a moment, hope flickers, but betrayal and foreign power close in. Lumumba's dream fades with every mile. The journey is desperate, a race against time and fate. The end draws near. December 1st, 1960, Lumumba is captured near the Sankuru River. His defiance remains, but he is paraded, humiliated, and beaten. Imprisoned, he is still feared by his enemies. The Belgians push for his transfer to Katanga, a death sentence. January 17, 1961. Lumumba and two allies are flown to Elizabethville, beaten en route. By landing, he is barely conscious, but his spirit is not fully broken. In Katanga, torture continues. Chombe and Belgian officials mock their captive. This is their revenge, a ritual of humiliation. They strip Lumumba of power and dignity, but not his legacy. The night is long, filled with cruelty and fear. The world looks away. The final act is imminent. Lumumba's fate is sealed. That night, Lumumba and his companions are driven into the savannah. A firing squad, commanded by a Belgian officer, awaits. They are tied to a tree and executed. No trial, no mercy. The killers try to erase all trace, dismembering and dissolving the bodies in acid. They hope to erase Lumumba from history, to prevent a martyr's grave. The world is told lies. He escaped, he was killed by villagers. But the truth leaks out, a conspiracy of Congolese rivals, Belgians, and the CIA. Mobutu is installed ruling for decades with Western support. They believe they've destroyed the idea by killing the man. But ideas are harder to kill than people. Lumumba's execution is meant to end a dream. Instead, it gives birth to a legend. They destroyed his body, but not his spirit. Lumumba becomes a martyr, a symbol of African independence and resistance. His ghost haunts the conscience of the West, exposing the hypocrisy beneath their rhetoric. Congo's tragedy is the legacy of those who killed him. The dream of a united free Congo died in Katanga, replaced by dictatorship and plunder. Yet Lumumba's name endures, inspiring those who fight for justice. His story asks, what is true independence? How many Lumumbas have been silenced? His legacy is not just history, it's a challenge for today. As long as Africa's resources are exploited, Lumumba's ghost will not rest. His story is a warning and an inspiration. You can kill the man, but never the idea. The CIA would have wanted Patrice Lumumba gone primarily due to Cold War dynamics and the fear that he would lead the newly independent Congo into the Soviet sphere of influence. US officials viewed Lumumba as a dangerous pro-communist radical, a belief that was shaped by the prevailing Cold War ideology. They feared that a pro-communist Congo, with its vast size and Central African location, would jeopardize Western interests and security in the region. When the United Nations and the United States refused his request for military aid to suppress the Belgian-supported secession of the mineral-rich Katanga province, Lumumba, in an act of desperation, sought help from the Soviet Union. The arrival of Soviet advisors and military assistance set off alarm bells at the CIA and confirmed the worst fears of US policymakers, making his removal an urgent priority. The Congo's Katanga province was a vital source of uranium, which had been used in the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and other strategic minerals. The US was determined to keep these resources out of Soviet hands, and Lumumba's potential willingness to grant the Soviets access was a major concern. American officials believed that Lumumba's government was erratic and leading the country into chaos. CIA Director Alan Dulles stated that Lumumba's continued power would result in, at best, chaos, and at worst, an eventual seizure of power by the communists, making his dismissal an objective for stability under a pro-Western leader. Lumumba was a charismatic nationalist leader who believed the wealth of the Congo should remain with its people. This stance threatened Western, especially Belgian and American, business interests in the country's extractive industries, and was perceived as an obstacle to Western influence. The CIA actively supported Joseph Mobutu, then Army Chief of Staff, as a more moderate and pro-Western alternative to Lumumba. Mobutu, with US backing, eventually seized power in a coup and later facilitated Lumumba's capture and transfer to his enemies in Katanga, where he was ultimately killed by Congolese and Belgian assassins.